Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Divine Assertions YouTube channel. From past many days, we are seeing how things have been shaped and looked towards to. We are also seeing the actual hatred and abhorrence that people and governments have towards Islam and Muslims. And these things only highlight the hypocritical nature shown by West. This is where France comes under the spotlight. The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, gave a speech in early October where he said that Islam was in crisis throughout the globe. Then we also saw the republishing of the cartoons of Prophet peace be upon him by the infamous magazine Charlie Hebdo under the tag of freedom of speech. This all is so astonishing and perplexing because the same government of France has banned the observance of hijab by Muslim women and also can't tolerate a word said about the national flag and the president. So this means the freedom of speech observed by France isn't absolute but has limitations, especially when it comes to Muslims. After all this, there occurred the beheading of a school teacher by his student because the teacher had shown the class the caricatures of Prophet peace be upon him. What later followed this incident was a whole crackdown by the French government on the Muslims in France. A number of mosques and charity organizations were closed down and many arrests were made. The French government also defended the stance of the teacher by saying that what the teacher did was absolutely justified as a part of freedom of speech. They also gave the teacher the highest civilian award of France. And when it couldn't get a further provocative nature, they showed the caricatures of Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him on the government buildings in France. Although the murder of the teacher cannot be justified in any way, and it was indeed a brutal crime, but at the same time, how can this thing be justified to completely alienate 500,000 French Muslims as being suspects of terrorism, radicalism, and extremism? Also, one thing that should be kept in mind is that when one talks about the freedom of speech and expression, is that this was introduced in order to empower and envoice the minorities of a region, and not on the contrary to degrade, insult, and demean their religion, culture, or even ethics. Furthermore, if societies are meant to live in harmony and peace, then the freedom of speech and expression must be limited and not absolute. What followed these number of events was that there was a complete boycott of French goods by Muslim countries like Turkey, Kuwait, Qatar, Pakistan, and even Bangladesh. In recent protests in Bangladesh, nearly 500,000 Muslims participated in one gathering, which showed the reverence they have for Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him. Also, in one of the recent tweets, the French president said that the secularism has never killed anyone. This statement is so naive and self-defeating because the same country has a brutal colonial history of about 130 years of brutal oppression and persecution in Algeria, where nearly 1.5 million Muslims were killed. Furthermore, the French government in one of the recent interviews with Al Jazeera said that people need to respect and inculcate the European values, ethics, and culture. And he also said that he does understand the shock that Muslims have about the cartoons of Prophet Muhammad. This thing seems like a colonial decadence in him. Whatever the French government is up to, the possible scenario is to demonize the Muslims and then persecute the Muslims, and also there is a great possibility to send Muslims to exile or eventually killing them. This is what happened with Muslims in Spain, and this also happened with Jews in Germany. Furthermore, we also have noticed the hypocrisy of nation states to this scenario. They absolutely can stand for the person who was beheaded and it is totally justified. But at the same time, when they themselves are involved in the killing of Muslims in Syria, in Yemen, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in China, in Myanmar, they stay silent as if nothing has happened. Finally, the thing that should be said is that blasphemy laws have a particular context, and if taken out of context, yes, they can lead to extremism. Finally, the things that should be understood are, in order to safeguard the rights of Muslims across the globe, Muslim countries need to stand up for justice for mankind. In that way, they can represent what Quran calls qa'iman bil qist, as the upholders of justice. Also, what they need to do is to present the actual picture of Islam and to contextualize the things that are misrepresented by the Islamophobic masses. And finally, the best way to defend Prophet is to practice what he taught us.